crisis of masculinity or the struggles of boys and young men, lack of meaning, lack of purpose, lack of initiation and sort of knowing where to fit into society in general, let alone in a relationship. What's your view or your insight on what is going on there? Firstly, what do you think of the issue? And how do you think that we come out of that in modern Western society?
Well, unfortunately, there has been a feminization or a quest to feminize men, to degrade. It's obvious. It's happening here in America and in other parts of the world. We know that. And I think it's terrible. The problem is that there is a feeling in certain sectors of society that if a man is a real man and acts like a man should, that it's demeaning to women. And I think that's this whole feminist movement has started. And it's not. If a man acts like a man should be and emulates, in my view, the greatest man that ever walked the face of the earth, which is Jesus of Nazareth, it's actually a benefit to women. It's a benefit. But people are not seeing it. I'll give you an example. My wife, she doesn't work. I mean, she does work. She does filming and all that kind of stuff. Recently, we started to do that together. But for many years, she didn't have to work outside of the house. It was my job. Okay? I wanted to provide for her. I want to protect her. I want to take care of my kids. Had she wanted to work, I would say fine. I didn't restrict her from that, but she had her job to raise the kids and to do a lot of other things. So it's not demeaning at all. When we walk down the street, I have 5 daughters, I want to protect them. I don't want them to protect me. And that's my job as a man, But people think, and my daughters are all very independent, extremely independent. They all work. They have great jobs. They do what they do. But they understand that they want a man to be a man, and to act like he's supposed to. We each have different roles. 2 genders, we have different roles as man and woman. Mm. So Andrew Tate, who happens to be a friend, we communicated that. Why does he have so many followers? He has young men following him in droves because they need mentors. Now, maybe at times, Andrew can be a little abrasive. His messages feel, we understand that. But it's not so much that. It's the men that are attracted to the message. They need a mentor. Okay, so we as men have to be mentors to these young men because when men are men and act strong, we have a good society. Yeah. And when they don't, we have weakness like we have here in this country now.
I think the answer is obvious to me, but more for the audience and for particularly young men who I know will be listening to this podcast, guys in their early 20s, guys in their teens. What do you consider to be the role of a man in society? And do you think that changes as society changes, or do you think that the core tenets just remain the same?
No, I don't think it changes at all. I think a man's role in the household is to be the head of the household. Now, again, well, what does that mean? That doesn't mean you order your wife around. It doesn't mean that you're a slave driver in any way. People take it out of context. But you have to, consulting with your wife, you have to make decisions. You have to be the one that provides for the house, whether your wife works or not. It's still your job. I don't like the guy, see the guy staying home or a woman go out. It's not supposed to be that. Both go out. Okay, fine. You had a career, terrific. Hey, there's many professional, husband and wife who go out. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I'm not against that at all. Listen, in my view, my wife, she's on a pedestal. I think in many ways she's a better person than I am. But that doesn't take away my role to protect and defend and provide. Yes, that's my job. Okay, but I don't look at her this, she's a better judge of character. I tend to be, a little bit less sometimes observant of things. She's good and she makes me aware of that. We're a good partnership, So, and it doesn't change with the times. Man has to be a man. He has certain qualities that he has to live up to and adhere to. When he does that, society's in a better place. That's what.
Do you think that there's an agenda to drive a wedge between the sexes? Because it does seem that, throughout my relatively youngish lifetime, it seems like for decades, if you really look at the media and some of the communication and some of the messaging, whether it's in schools, it's in universities, it's through Hollywood, whatever it is, it does seem that there is an intentional effort to cause men and women to view each other as adversaries and competitors rather than complementary and cooperative.
There is a movement in that regard. I don't understand it. I think it started out, maybe on television years ago when they had family like married with children, and all of a sudden, the head of the household became a goofball.
Yes.
And Ed O'Neill's a friend of mine. He'll tell you it's a big look. But and that continued in Modern Family and some of these other TV series where the men became goofy, as the head of the household. I don't know why that started, Zuby. I can't really answer it. Like, who caused that to happen? When I look at women that talk about, men in a certain way, my first reaction is, what kind of men are you meeting? Why do you have to? I saw the movie Barbie. My granddaughter, 12 years old, said, and can we go see Barbie grandpa? Sure. It was a movie for my 12-year-old granddaughter. And they're dumbing down men and making men seem silly and goofy and dumb and inferior.
Bizarre. And I think on a deeper level, it's an attack on God's design.
I agree.
Once you understand the Christian view of the role of, if someone's looking for the role of a man or a role of a woman, you can, Christianity, and it's right there. It's also in Islam. It's in Judaism. There's a book from several thousand years ago which lays it all out. So I think on a deeper level, a lot of it strikes me as just I think we're seeing a lot of rebellion against God's design.
I admire Western. And listen, if you go back to biblical times and you read the New Testament, when women had very little regard, they weren't held. The testimony of a woman meant nothing in court, nothing whatsoever. But when Jesus rose from the dead, who did he appear to first as a witness to his being risen? Women. So he elevated the status of women right then and there just by appearing, because they were the ones that went out and spread the word. Yeah. Usually no one paid attention to a woman. So, in biblical times, obviously in the Old Testament, things were different. That's just the way it was. But Jesus changed that by holding women in very high esteem.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think it's a blowback against, faith and against God. And it's just demeaning to both sexes. Not only to men, but to both sexes.
And people aren't happy with it. That's the funny part. Even the people who promote it and talk all the talk and say all these things and push these ideologies, when you look at their lives, or you fast forward and look at their lives, and it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years when they start to see the consequences. But as you said, I think we're at the early stages of some sort of awakening of this experiment did not quite play out.
Yeah,
the way that we thought it would.
I agree. Being 72 years old now, being married for 38 years, there's nothing better than companionship. You're on the same level. You need a companion. We were made. God says it. Man shouldn't be alone. He created woman. And it's the greatest feeling in the world to have somebody that is your soulmate and your companion. Especially later on. And I think a lot of these women now are finding that out. I really mean it, from testimonies that I've heard from a lot of women. And I look into that because I'm concerned about it. I really am.